SSL has just released the 4K channel strip, so there are now 3 different channel strips available directly from SSL. And today I want to figure out what the exact differences are between those channel strips. So let's get started. Now imagine going into a studio session where you just have to use whatever you have. And for the session you have a 32 channel SSL 9000K and 2 racks full of effects. Now keep in mind that this is all hardware, so you can use all the things only once. Now in the pre-digital days, this was not an imagination, this was simply a fact of life for engineers. You just had to work with whatever was there, whatever was in your own studio or whatever. And if you, for instance, had an SSL 9000K, then the whole record would get that SSL 9000K sound over it. You couldn't just get a channel strip from a 4000B or something and swap those things out in the consoles. That's not how it worked. And nowadays we're living in a very comfortable and luxurious time because we can basically use an infinite number of plugins on an infinite amount of channels. At least as long as the computer is going to do it, you can. And it's, with modern day CPU technology, a lot. And with something good always comes something bad as well. And what I think is bad about this is that with so many possibilities, it becomes difficult to choose. And that's the same case with these 3 channel strips. Like if you want to use the SSL ecosystem, the 360 ecosystem, and you probably have the controllers or something, you gotta choose one of them. And it's not just that you're choosing that for your whole mix. No, you can choose this per channel. So I've spent like 2 days figuring out what the differences exactly are, because on the surface, if we look at all these 3 together, so this is the SSL native channel strip, which is kind of based on the 9000K, although after measuring, I do think it's cleaner than a 9000K. And this is the new 4000E, and this is the quite new but already out for a little while, 4000B. And as you can see, like we have a 4-band EQ, 4-band EQ, 4-band EQ, and they all have their little extra features in here based on the real world consoles. But there are no huge differences in that regard. And the same goes for the compressors. Yes, they have a bit of different control, but they are all very familiar towards each other. If you can work with one of these channel strips, you can basically work with all of them. So from that regard, functionality and stuff, it's not really that interesting. So what I did is I set up a comparison test. And I've tried several ways of doing this comparison because it turns out it's not that simple. And what I've tried for these comparisons is that I've tried to match the settings for each of these as close as I could get them, both by using scientific methods and by using my ears. Because what I've noticed is that when I tried to scientifically match up the settings, they actually sounded a lot different from each other. And when I tinkered around a little bit more with the gain staging and that kind of stuff, because that's one of the things that's a big difference between these 3 plugins, there's a big gaining difference between those, I actually could get them to match much closer to each other. So yeah, here's an example of the differences. So I hope the differences are big enough to punch through the YouTube codec. But honestly, I think these differences are bigger than I expected them to be. I actually expected the whole different type of channel strip to be a little bit of snake oily stuff. But it turns out there's actually a difference. And keep in mind that this is just on one stereo channel. Now, what I've noticed is that there's a big difference in compression response between these three channel strips. So here's another comparison with the compressor disabled. So, and again, I hope this comes across. The difference is a bit smaller, but there is still a significant difference. And how I think I would describe it is, and this may sound weird because it's an EQ, but it's a dynamic difference, like, or maybe a timing difference. The native one sounds very clean. The E sounds a bit more ringy, and the B sounds very old school, maybe. I think the 4000B is the most characterful of these three. And this is a general theme I've seen, because I took it one step further and I mixed a drum track with just a few channels, but still I wanted to use it in a mixing scenario on the 4000E. And I matched up the settings on the other two plugins. And here are the differences on drums. Yeah, I know. It doesn't make any sense. No. I've been breaking my brain over this for hours, trying to figure out where these differences come from, but this is the closest I can match these things up. I don't understand why the difference is so big, but apparently the difference is that big. Probably due to the differences in compression and stuff, because I am leaning pretty hard on the compression. But again, I really overdo the settings in the plugins, because that just brings across the point on YouTube a lot better. So the simplest way or rule of thumb that I could come up with about selecting a channel strip is that if you want to get a clean sound, the best one to use is the native channel strip 2. If you want to have a very, very characterful sound, basically the most characterful sound that you can get in a channel strip from Solid State Logic right now, you go with the SSL 4K-B. And if you want to get somewhere in between those two, so a bit of character but not as much as the 4K-B, you go with the 4K-E. I want to thank the people from SSL for handing me out the 4K-E plugin beforehand so that I could make this video. They are not sponsoring me, nor did they put any requirements in for receiving this version early. Comparing these three together was my own idea. And everything that I'm saying in this video is my complete, honest, and independent opinion. Now, if you want to support me and want to buy the SSL 4000 E channel strip or another plugin from SSL, you could consider using my affiliate link in the description down below. If you use that link, a little bit of your purchase gets kicked back to me. Also, if you want to buy something else, consider using my general affiliate links from Thomann, Sweetwater, and Plugin Boutique. They will also be in the description down below. Another way to support me is by becoming a channel member. And channel members get access to all the tutorials that I'm making at the moment. I'll link the tutorial playlist over here. And if you don't want to become a channel member but want to support the channel by watching more videos, you could watch this video maybe instead. Thanks a lot for watching, keep pushing, and bye bye.